Iraj's Legacy, a modern tale of unity. Iraj Parhami stood at the podium, his heart racing as he looked out over the sea of expectant faces. At 18, he was the youngest speaker at the International Youth Summit for Cultural Unity, representing Iran in a global gathering of young leaders. The weight of his nation's history and future pressed upon his shoulders. "My name is Iraj," he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "In Persian legend, my namesake was a prince who sought peace in a time of strife. Today, I stand before you with the same goal." As Iraj spoke about his vision for cross-cultural understanding and cooperation, he couldn't help but think of the journey that had brought him to this moment. It all started a year ago when Iraj's high school history teacher, Mr. Ferdowsi, had assigned a project on family heritage. Iraj had always known his name came from the Shahnameh, the epic poem at the heart of Persian culture, but he'd only given it a little thought beyond that. Digging into his family history, Iraj discovered he descended from a long line of diplomats and peacemakers. His great-grandfather had been an ambassador during turbulent times, working tirelessly to maintain Iran's relationships with its neighbors. Inspired by this legacy, Iraj researched the story of his legendary namesake. He learned of Prince Iraj, the youngest and most beloved son of King Feridun, who had been given the rule of Iran. When his elder brothers, Sam and Tur, grew jealous and plotted against him, Iraj sought reconciliation rather than conflict. The tragic end of the legendary Iraj's story, his murder at the hands of his brothers, had always been seen as a cautionary tale about the futility of peace in the face of envy and hatred. But as Iraj researched further, he began to see it differently. What if Iraj's actions weren't naive but brave? What if his willingness to seek peace, even at significant personal risk, was precisely what the world needed more of? These thoughts consumed Iraj as he walked home from school one day. He was so lost in contemplation that he almost didn't notice the commotion ahead. A group of teenagers was arguing loudly, tensions rising. Iraj recognized them as students from his school, but from ethnic and religious backgrounds that rarely mix. Without a second thought, Iraj stepped into the midst of the argument. "Hey, what's happening here?" he asked, his voice calm but resolute. The group turned to him, surprise momentarily replacing anger on their faces. Iraj was known in school but more as a quiet, studious type than someone intervening in a fight. "Stay out of this, Iraj," one boy said. "It's not your problem." But Iraj stood his ground. "If it's happening in our community, it's all our problems," he said. "Come on, tell me what's going on here." Slowly, the story came out. Misunderstandings had piled upon prejudices, and rumors had inflamed old grudges. As Iraj listened, he realized that beneath the anger there was fear, fear of the unknown, losing one's identity, fear of change. "You know," Iraj said when they had finished, "this reminds me of an old story." And he began narrating the legendary Iraj tale about brothers torn apart by mistrust and jealousy. But he also spoke of the courage to seek understanding and extend a hand in peace, even when every instinct screams for self-protection. As he spoke, Iraj saw the tension begin to leave the group. They weren't transformed overnight, but a seed had been planted. Before they parted ways, Iraj had convinced them to meet again, talk more, and understand each other's perspectives. This incident sparked something in Iraj. He began to see his school, community, and country in a new light. Everywhere he looked, he saw divisions between ethnic groups, religious sects, and social classes. But he also saw opportunities for bridge building. That incident sparked something in Iraj. He began to see his school, community, and country in a new light. Everywhere he looked, he saw divisions between ethnic groups, religious sects, and social classes. But he also saw opportunities for bridge building. Iraj started small, organizing cultural exchange events at his school. He brought in speakers from different backgrounds and arranged shared meals featuring cuisines from various regions of Iran and neighboring countries. Slowly but surely, barriers began to break down. Word of Iraj's efforts spread. He was invited to speak at other schools and community centers. Local media picked up the story of the teenage peacemaker, drawing parallels to his legendary namesake. Only some people supported Iraj's mission. Some accused him of betraying his own culture by promoting too much integration. Others dismissed him as a naive idealist. There were even threats from hardliners who saw his message of unity as a challenge to their power. But for every detractor, Iraj found many more supporters. Young people especially were drawn to his vision of a more united Iran that celebrated its diverse heritage while forging a shared future. But for every detractor, Iraj found many more supporters. Young people especially were drawn to his vision of a more united Iran that celebrated its diverse heritage while forging a shared future. This growing movement caught the attention of the International Youth Summit organizers, leading to Iraj's invitation to speak. Standing on that global stage, Iraj felt the weight of his own story and the stories of all those who had supported and believed in him. He thought of the legendary Iraj, who had walked unarmed into danger in the name of peace. Iraj realized he was walking into unknown territory, armed only with his convictions and hope for a better future. The Iraj of legend was slain by his brothers, he said, his voice ringing out across the hushed auditorium. But his dream of unity did not die with him. It lives on in everyone who chooses understanding over suspicion, cooperation over conflict, love over hate. Iraj outlined his vision for a global youth network, for cultural exchange and conflict resolution. As he spoke, he could see the audience's eyes lighting up and heads nodding in agreement. The past tragedies do not bind us, Iraj concluded. We can write a new story, a story of brothers and sisters united, of cultures intertwined, of a world where diversity is strength and peace is not just a dream, but a reality we build together. The thunderous applause followed. As Iraj left the stage, he was swarmed by other young leaders, all eager to connect, share ideas and join forces. Their eyes were filled with hope and determination, inspired by Iraj's words, and ready to contribute to his vision of a more united world. In the following weeks and months, Iraj's life became a whirlwind of activity. The network he had proposed at the summit became a reality, with chapters springing up in countries worldwide. Iraj found himself traveling, speaking and organizing, a modern ambassador for the timeless ideals of peace and unity. Of course there were challenges, cultural misunderstandings, political obstacles, moments of doubt and exhaustion. But every time Iraj felt overwhelmed, he thought of his namesake. The legendary Iraj had faced death with courage and compassion. Indeed, he could face a few setbacks with the same spirit. A year after the summit, Iraj stood in Tehran's Azadi Square, addressing a gathering of thousands. Young people from every corner of Iran and beyond had come together for a festival of cultural unity. Music filled the air, blending traditional melodies with modern rhythms. The scent of foods from 100 different cuisines wafted in the breeze. As Iraj looked out over the crowd, faces of every color, clothes of every style, all joined in celebration, he felt a profound hope. This was what the legendary Iraj had dreamed of, what countless generations had worked towards. Iraj knew that there was still much work to be done. Peace was not a destination, but a journey that required constant effort and vigilance. But looking at the joy and unity before him, Iraj knew it was a journey worth taking. In that moment, Iraj felt connected, not just to his legendary namesake, but to all those throughout history who had dared to dream of a more united world. He was not just Iraj Parhami, a teenager from Tehran. He was Iraj, the peacemaker, the bridge builder, the uniter of people. And his story was only just beginning.